take notice that action will be taken on the following items at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, January 24th, are we recording? Okay. January 24th, 2023 in the council chambers of Sparta Township Municipal Building, 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. This meeting is called to order at 6:30. The regular meeting begins at 7:30. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the public and the press on January 6, 2023 by delivering to the press and posting on the township website a copy of this ordinance. We should call the roll and then we'll go into executive session. Okay. So will the clerk please call the roll? I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Clark.
Here.
Here.
And let the record note that Councilman Hertzberg and Councilman Blumetti are not present today. All right, now we will go into executive session. And so at this time, you're going to spring into action and read the following to send us into executive session. There you go.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Sparta, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of an action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Litigation advice. B, personnel. C, contract negotiations. D, miscellaneous legal advice. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public when deemed appropriate. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
May I have a motion to go into executive session?
I move we go into executive session.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. I would like to take a 7-minute break and we'll convene at 7:30. Thank you. I'm going to avail myself of the bathroom. And we just concluded a slight short recess. And we're back in public session. And for the public, I'd maybe ask that the clerk call the roll one more time.
Mayor Giro.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Clark.
Here.
Councilman Quinn. Here.
And Councilman Hertzberg and Councilman Blumetti are not here. Will you please join me as we salute our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. We have executive minutes to approve, so may I have a motion to approve the executive minutes? Actually, I don't think we'd have a quorum to do that.
Well, we have a quorum, so we will have one of three abstaining, and technically we can pass it if we have 2 votes.
So it's a majority of present, not a majority of council members.
Yes, not usually our best practices. We prefer to have more individuals present, but you can proceed and pass with 2 votes.
Okay, excellent. May I have a motion to approve the executive meeting minutes from October 25th, 2022? I will second. Before I call for a vote, I did have one comment that I shared with the clerk. Since it's an executive session, I don't know how appropriate it is to bring it up, what the comment was on the executive minutes.
Well, not if we're talking about executive session minutes. We wouldn't do that in public. That would be
correct.
An executive session.
So if you
So
want
what do we do?
then we can't
Well,
vote.
you can table it and then discuss executive session mission minutes in a future executive session.
I think this is important enough to do that. So since we already have a motion to approve, I think we have to vote on that motion and second it. So all those in favor?
You're
Any-
pulling this back, right?
Well, first, I'd like to pull them back, right? So
Let me just rescind my motion.
I think that's probably best.
I'll rescind my motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so may I have a motion to table the executive minutes from October 25th, 2022?
So moved.
And I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And we have one abstention. All right, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the executive minutes from December 13th, 2022?
So moved.
I will second it myself. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
And we have one abstention. Thank you. So though the minutes from December 13th, 2022 have passed, and we have tabled the October 25th, 2022 minutes, executive minutes. Now we have meeting minutes from the regular session, December 13th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Those were, okay.
The regular minutes from
So
December.
moved.
Yeah. And I will second it myself. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
And we have one abstention, so the regular minutes have been approved. Thank you. Can the acting town manager present the manager's report?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that the 2023 dog and cat license renewal is open through February 28th. All residents with cat and dog license filed with the township were sent renewal notices, and the rabies clinic is scheduled for April 22nd, 2023. Public Works, the road department's been busy with a company replacing damaged guardrails on White Lake, East Mountain, and West Mountain roads. They also repaired a couple of damaged street signs. The Public Works Mechanic Division hired a new mechanic to begin at the beginning of the year, which brings the fleet staff to full. 2023 tree collection ended on January 16th. The decorations on the streets around the town were taken down, and for all season flags replaced with seasonal banners. Tax, close to 7,000 trash bills were printed, stuffed, and mailed out the end of last week. Residents are in receipt of the bills. Parks and Recreation, the department is finalizing plans for the Winter Carnival on February 14th. Our main attraction will be an illusionist. Many of the groups have participated in the past and are returning. The department is preparing information for the day summer camp. Registration begins on March 1st for residents. The IT department, the new township website will be going live actually today. More information will be forthcoming. And the Edmunds software application will be migrated to the cloud on February 13th. Planning and Zoning Department. All commission meetings are being reviewed and uploaded, and new website transparency. Kim Knoll is the new commission chair and has been instrumental in getting this done. Already planning events for Sparta Day and Earth Day, and to bring awareness to environmental commission issues. There have been 10 law complaints and violations and 7 cases are still pending from last year. 18 zoning applications, and we are booking planning and zoning applications for March. The 3 new police vehicles have been arrived and completed outfitting for to go out on patrol line. OEM, we are currently experiencing milder temperatures. Sparta Township Office of Emergency Management is constantly monitoring the need to open the Go-To Center, and will be, and residents will be encouraged to visit our police station at any time, or Sparta Library during the hours, media platform, safety tips, space heater usage, and caution on ice skating and use of lakes, and other important and related safety issues. Test all smoke detectors, carbon dioxide detectors in the house. And that concludes my report.
Excellent. Thank you, Sam. And if you haven't yet noticed, our website is live. There, it looks kind of like this. And I did take a look at my picture, and there's like a giant head of me. So if you want to, that was kind of fun. Anyway, may I have a motion to accept the manager's report that was just read?
I move that we accept the manager's report as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Okay, that manager's report has now been accepted. I would like to take this time to open up to the public for public comment on any items that are not on the agenda.
Name is Joe Giroux, a longtime resident.
Can you state your address also, please, for the record?
3 Arrowhead Trail,
Thank you.
Sparta. A longtime resident, been a business owner and now an executive at Planet Networks. Really just want to make sure as a committee, a township, the mayor, that we're really focused on economic development. We've got tremendous headwinds that are coming, to the county. We've got national recognition for the safety of the town. We've got an expansion of some really good businesses with Starbucks, Atlantic Healthcare. And I just want to make sure that at the town level, we're leveraging the county data, the state data, and we're leveraging technology to bring in the right companies, service and software companies into this community. So I just want to urge that you find the right people, stay focused on the opportunity we have as a diamond in the rough in one of the growing counties in the country. Sussex County broke a record for hotel occupancy in the entire United States. We're the anchor of that. So as a committee, as a group, as a town, I just want to hope that we continue that momentum and we get the right people to make sure that we capitalize on this opportunity. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Joe. And we will have later on in the agenda a discussion about the Economic Development Committee. But thank you. Anybody else from the public? Again, items not on the agenda.
Jenny Derricks, Tap into Sparta. The new website looks great. Thank you. I looked at it this afternoon. Easy to find everything, and easy to see some things that are missing. I've mentioned this before, so I'm going to bring it up again. Minutes that are missing: Town Council, July, August, September. The Environmental Commission has no minutes posted except March of last year. Planning Board only has 4 months listed, 4 meeting minutes listed last year. They're missing 11 minutes. Zoning Board is missing 7 months worth of minutes. And then Planning and Zoning for this year, the 2 meetings that have already occurred are not posted on the website. I know there may be some glitches with the new site just going live, but I also appreciate that it's using the iCal platform for
that feeds into you.
which will Bureau scrapes it and will automatically populate into TAP, so that'll help get some of the information out for the community. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And just to build on that, even though the site, the structure is live, we're still loading up content. So the content load will take a little bit of time before it goes. Is there anything else you wanted to say on the website, or we capture that?
Just other than, our IT director is very, happy to get it up live, and it seems to be going pretty well.
Yep. This is more of an ERP type of system, if you're familiar with technology, that is integrated with a lot of other systems, and so yeah, it's very good, thank you. We're very proud of it.
And we're still loading information, because I know today I wanted to look back on a 2006 ordinance, and I don't think we're there yet to load that in there.
The ordinances should all be in there, that's a separate system, no?
It could be user error, so I'm not.
The ordinance, I believe that the ordinance.
Well, our current state ordinances are there.
It's actually a separate system that feeds, it's available through the website. But I'll take a look at it because it used to be there and it was just a separate.
Yeah, I've been able before, and then, but like I said, it could be user error and not anything wrong with our system.
Okay. Anybody else from the public? All right. Seeing no one, I will continue with with the balance of our agenda. May I have a motion to approve the expenditures from January 11th, 2023? Actually, before I do, will the Deputy Mayor please read the January 11, 2023 expenditures, or summary of thereof?
The list of expenditures.
Or actually, maybe stated better, would you make a motion to approve those expenditures?
And this is
for
on
us?
the bill list that we were given, is that right?
There's a summary of that, right?
Okay, summary, but that.
January 11, 2023.
That incorporates the itemized list of bills, correct? Okay.
It's the
'Cause
summary
I
of
think
that.
there are some questions related to the itemized bills, if we could have
Okay.
a moment to discuss that.
So actually, we have to put the motion out to vote on them before we have a discussion of them, and then once the motion's been made to bring that vote to the floor, then we can have that discussion.
Okay. So I move that we approve bill list totals by fund dated January 11th, January 24th, 2000.
Sorry, January 11, we're doing first.
January 11th.
There's two
I
different
didn't know
bills.
if we'd
Yeah.
already done January 11th.
Nope.
Sure.
Start with January 11.
I make a motion that we approve the bill list totals by fund dated January 11th, 2023, and January 24th, 2023.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one. So the motion to approve the bill total from January 11, 2023, and can you read us the total amount?
Sure. The total amount for January 11th, 2023 is $262,566.57.
Excellent. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any discussion of the bill list of January 11, 2023? Are you good with that one, or?
Yeah, it's the January 24th, I think I had.
Okay.
Question.
Any other discussion? All right, all those,
Before we approve, he should ask us questions and
What?
get clarification before we make a motion to approve.
right, but he's got questions on the 24th
What
bill.
I'm saying, before we make a motion to approve the ones on the 24th, the questions should be asked so that.
Yep. Understood. Thanks. Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the expenditures dated January 11, 2023? I'm sorry, we already made that motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, the January 11, 2023 bill list has been approved. Will the Deputy Mayor please read into the record a motion to approve the January 24, 2023 bills?
Sure. I move that we approve bill list totals by fund dated January 24th, 2023, in the grand total amount of $7,188,009.42.
Excellent. May I have a second?
Why are we approving it if he has questions?
Oh, yeah, we're approving it to bring it to the floor for a vote, and before we vote, then there will be a discussion of it, and then we vote.
Motion comes before the vote.
If there's no motion to bring it to the floor for a vote, then there's no discussion of it, so we have to bring it to the floor first. Okay, I will second it myself. Any discussion?
Sure. Just a couple questions. Unfortunately, I'm not able to pull up the itemized list at the moment, but I do recall just a couple questions I had. There was an amount for Hunter Technologies, and I wasn't clear what that was for.
Hunter Technologies is the company that that installed our telephone system throughout the whole town, including DPW, parks, and this building and police station.
Okay. And another one was, this was just having to do with the description of it. I think it was 125,786 for protective measures, is about $8,000 for security. I didn't know if you knew what that was for.
Not off the top of my head, but if it's protective measures, yes, it is something to do with possibly the police, but I can check into that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the January 24, 2023
There was
bills?
one related to eye care reimbursements, and then it said something about leased properties, and I was kind of didn't see the connection between eye care and a leased property. Do you have any explanation for that?
Basically, what we get this year is a lot of our retirees basically can bring in their medical bills, and actually we have to reimburse them for eye care and stuff like that. That was from old contracts that we were still bound by.
Got you. Okay, I think that ends all the questions I had about particular items, so we can pull it up for.
Okay. All those in favor of the January 24, 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, the January 24, 2023 bills have been approved. Move on. We have two ordinances to be introduced today. At the introduction, there's generally no discussion of the ordinance except for maybe questions about why they're introduced, but the debate of the ordinance will occur at the hearing. So the first ordinance is 2301. And may I have will the clerk please read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance amending Article 3, meetings of the Sparta Council, Section 2-3.2, regular meetings of the municipal board of Sparta.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce that ordinance?
I move that we introduce ordinance 23-01.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn.
Yes.
That ordinance has been introduced. The second ordinance to be introduced is ordinance 23-02. Will the clerk please read the title of that ordinance?
An ordinance amending Chapter 7, traffic of the revised ordinances of the Township of Florida, amending Section 7-17, vehicle over designated weight excluded from certain streets.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce that ordinance?
I move that we introduce ordinance number 2302.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Which I should have asked for at the beginning. May I have a roll call vote, please?
I do have discussion on.
Okay, hold on, please.
I do have input on 2302. So I think it's important in between, I know we're going to introduce this, but I think it's also important that we have an actual discussion with Lake Maho Country Club, since these are, both of the, this is one of their roads, and the issue is with larger trucks. And so I think we need to bring them into the conversation, at least so that we are certain that they're aware. I don't think we can just assume that, changes are going to be made to the roads in the reservation. So my recommendation is to formally reach out in between and just give them actual notice, so that if they have any questions, concerns, or whatnot, they have the ability to be able to come before, or at least be present at the hearing.
Okay. I'll make a comment. The nature of this ordinance is to correct incongruity in our ordinances. There was an existing weight limit on this road, and a separate and different weight limit was introduced last year with a different ordinance that put now two different weight limits on the same road within our collection of ordinances, thus creating a disparity within our ordinances. So this ordinance was introduced just to correct that and basically undo that last action. So in effect, we're not changing any weight limit on any roads. We're just correcting a mistake that was made last year.
So still, I'm just saying these are roads in the reservation, it's a private reservation, and I think that we should just at the very least send a letter directly to them, not assuming that they're going to see it online or any other way, and just let them know that we're taking action, regardless of whatever, we're still taking action, and these roads are in the reservation. So I'm not saying we need to do anything drastic, other than I think the letter should be sent to the general manager, just to let them know that this is going to be heard.
Okay, so noted. May I have a roll call? Any other discussion on this before we go to a vote?
My understanding, I think they have a committee that this was brought to, I think, the council's attention by a member of the committee of Lake Mohawk who handles traffic, and it was an issue that they had discussed, that it was, to their knowledge, always at 4 tons, and then had been bumped up to 8 tons. And I think they also brought the discrepancy between that and the existing ordinance. I think it's, or in the statute, it's 717, or, that has North Shore as a 4-ton limit. And so there was a disconnect between the ordinance and then the statute. I think, as Mayor Chiarello identified, this is just simply to tighten it up and to have consistency between our statute and our ordinance.
My recollection is it was brought actually forth by a citizen that lives on North Shore, not a committee. So this is why I'm saying, I think it's just out of respect that we just send them something to let them know.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. That ordinance has been introduced. There are no ordinance up for a hearing. So at this time, I will open it up to the public for any comments on any of the resolutions that are on the agenda.
Does that include the ordinances?
Actually, there'll be no discussion of the actual content of the ordinance at this time. When the ordinance is up for a hearing, then we debate the merits of the ordinance.
Can I just suggest, because I'm on the cut-through traffic committee, not representing the committee.
Can you state your name and address for the record? I'm sorry.
It's Robert Otto, 41 North Shore Trail. And actually, I was trying to figure this out too, and you guys changed the website. It does look good, but I find it
We're
hard
getting
to
there. It takes a
find
while to
some
load the
stuff on
content. It has a separate content management system that we have to
I couldn't find the
maintain.
agenda for tonight until, anyway. So I was trying to trace how these changes were made. So I just want to give you guys some stuff to think about, and maybe it would be appropriate to send you something to look into before you have the follow-up discussion.
And again, this is probably best for the next meeting, but if you can frame the discussion now, that's fine.
I can try to be just really quick. So, because Mr. Ryan, I think you were on some of this. It looks like some of this goes back to 2008 and 2015, and I guess I'm unclear. There's 7-17 and 737.4, and it seems like 737.4 governs private roads, not municipal roads, but not public roads, and it's like a Title 39 addition to the codes, so it's very confusing. And when this came up, Chris Quinn is correct that Beth Broderick brought it up, and she was seeking to add it to 717, but 717 starts as this is public roads only. So 737.4 seems to be just like Title 39, and I guess my question, maybe we could, if we bring Lake Mohawk into this, which I think is appropriate, Sabina and John Stanley, there's a list of like 86 roads with speed limits, with signage, with 4-ton weight restrictions on all of them. And so I understand we're using the Title 39 for that, and I guess my question is
is there an opportunity to, should North Shore Trail even be on 717 as the public roads ordinance? Or should it be in, it's already in 737.4, which is on there. And then the follow-up to that is that with these weight limits in 737.4, there's the 4-ton weight limit for every single road that's substandard in Lake Mohawk. But there's also West Shore Trail is listed in 7 somewhere. It's in the beginning of chapter 7, and it's specific to the bridge that goes over the Wallkill, which is a historic bridge. But that section governs mostly 4-ton weight limited roads. And so the way it's read, and I did discuss this with the engineer, I think that's wrong in there too, because it should be in its own section. All the other 4-ton ones, if a truck has business on any of the roads, it can use those roads. But that line, one, it should probably be in 737.4 as just like a Title 39 thing. And two, it needs its own heading because it's not to exceed 15 tons because that bridge would collapse. So anyway, maybe I could put this all together, send it to Mr. Ryan, Chris Quinn, anyone else who wants, and then, all right.
I think that's a good point, though, because I think these things, it's like that Star Trek V'ger, right? Just kind of collected things all along if you're a Star Trek fan.
Well, I mean, once you start looking through, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think, but the point is that our ordinances get grafted on, and it doesn't surprise me that things will go astray and might be appropriate to tighten up, and this might be an opportunity to tighten things up. And so I don't know if that would be.
I guess that's the question is like, it's really logical at the beginning of chapter 7, and then it gets really confused.
Right.
So then how would you know, because there's nothing in the early part of chapter 7. I mean, this town council missed it when another resident brought it up and said, hey, I want to add this to the public ordinance. They researched and they didn't find anything, and I'm not surprised. So, I shared it with a few people. So if at the beginning of chapter 7, we brought in the public roads, and you also have the municipal roads, and then you have like handicap spot. It's just exactly that. It's stuff's grafted on, and then it's not ordered. So you'd have to read all of chapter 7 through to the end, and then say, oh, this goes up here. So, and then you also
That's a good point.
In those subsections, you have like West Shore Trail in other places that it's only public roads and it's not a public road. And then White Deer Plaza, I mean, I don't know.
No, that's a good point. So I think the takeaway is that this might be a good opportunity to read that entire section, make sure it all hangs together and there's no other gotcha and congruity.
I was just curious, Robert, the committee that you're on, have they reviewed the ordinance? I'm wondering if that might be helpful and you can make recommendations as to changes to chapter 7.
So I guess that is my question, as if 737.4, if I'm reading it correctly, that it's a Title 39 thing, I believe Chief Spitaletto he never attended any of the cut-through traffic committee meetings for Lake Mohawk, and I'm speaking just as a taxpayer resident. I can't speak as a committee member, but I can just say that the only thing I heard from him was I think he was looking, what does Lake Mohawk Country Club want? Can you just give us everything you would want for the roads, and then we'll see if we can make it happen? So to me, that might mean that he's looking at the 737.4 and say, adjust anything here, and then the follow-up would, could we move it into earlier in chapter 7 is the question I have, or does it need to be separate because it's a Title 39 thing and not really part of the Sparta code per se?
I believe, and
Yep.
I wasn't around all that long, but back when this originally was implemented, 7-37.4 was intended for private roads, as you pointed out.
But it's only for Lake Mohawk roads. Yeah, and then there's a 737.3.
Yeah, .4A, it's Lake Mohawk Country Club,
But then it doesn't make sense, because then you have a 7-17 that talks about a weight limit for West Shore Trail, which is 15 tons for that bridge. And again, it's wrong from a safety perspective, but it's also superseded later when the entirety of the road is a 4-ton
Right.
exempt for business. But, so it just needs to be cleaned up, and I don't know, like, is that really hard to do? Could we just do it?
So I think the takeaway is, well,
We just have to identify what needs.
The
to-
incongruities
Literally,
and-
what needs to be done to clean it up, and then we certainly can go through procedures such as we're doing this evening, introduce the ordinance, and then hearing on the ordinance, and that would change the municipal code.
And then since you said it, I guess I'll ask, if it is a Title 39 thing, and you as the attorney, does Title 39 allow the country club to set variations on speed limits for the roads? Or is that for the police? I mean, obviously, the police department would look at that, but
You're
if,
absolutely right. That, they cannot unilaterally do that because,
Right.
as you know, they delegate to the municipality the enforcement of those restrictions. So the township would have to adopt those restrictions.
but they delegate that at the point that they say, we want to exercise Title 39 on these roads. So if you're asking them to open this up and present a new thing to you, is there an opportunity for them to tweak certain roads, say adjacent to a public thoroughfare?
we do have representatives of the council who are liaisons to the Lake Moken Club. I would
Yeah, I think.
defer to
I was
Neil.
going to recommend that, I think that,
Would be a nice conversation.
Councilwoman Quinn's suggestion is a good one, which is, that's
Sit down.
to notify, and then I think it would be helpful to us if, the committee says, here's our recommended changes to the ordinance, this is what we would like to see, and then we, in consultation with Mr. Ryan, can figure out the legalese necessary to perfect that, or, I'm not saying we're going to grant exactly what the committee wants.
I just want to make sure I'm not, because this committee has wasted about 2 years before I found, hey, there's already an ordinance on the books. Why aren't we just asking for enforcement? So I'm asking about, understood that they could be denied, but could the country club ask for reasonable speed limit modifications in this list and then put it up to Sparta Police, or is that not within their purview?
Yeah, that's within the purview.
Okay.
They
All
can
right.
do that.
All right, thanks.
So I think the next step is to have our council liaisons meet, as they're probably planning on
John
doing.
and Sabina. and-
Yep.
Okay.
And if you want to change any more of our laws, you come up here and, no, I'm kidding. So if you want to change any more of our laws, we've got a spot for you up here. Okay, thanks. I'm kidding. Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay. Excellent. All right, so any public comments on the resolutions, the collection of resolutions? There are 5 of them. Okay, seeing none, I'll turn it to the dais. Do anybody here have any comments on any of the resolutions?
Do have a comment on Resolution 9.5, which looks like a change order to White Lake Fields and Tomco Construction. And I guess my question is the basis for the change order. I know, if my recollection serves me, that we had previously, I think, allocated maybe $2.1 million, and now we're faced with a change order of $81,000, and so I'm trying to get at the bottom of why is that? Does anyone know?
If I wait, Mr. Hack can handle that.
The items are listed on the change order, and the reason for them is also listed.
Could you get really close to the mic? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Thank you.
the items are listed on a change order, and the reason for them is also listed. These are some of the things that were not included on the original plans when they were bid, but they are absolutely essential in order to make the project work. For instance, we have to extend the water system. It's in the high pressure zone, so we need meter, pressure reducing valves, and a screen, and a chamber for all of that to go in, which was not on the plans. The additional for backstops, they were not the size that the Recreation Department originally requested, so we made them compliant with their other fencing and backstops. So these are things that were not included on the original plans.
But they've been deemed essential, is that right?
Absolutely essential.
Okay.
In order to make the project
And
work.
I guess, going forward, my question, if they're deemed essential, why wouldn't a reasonable contractor have known that at the time that they made the bid to then include it?
A reasonable contractor bids the plans and specifications in order to be competitive and be the low bidder. It is not his job to add things to the plans that might make it better.
Yeah, because I'm just speaking for myself now. I think that the concern that I have is that we get a bid, and then, after that, people kind of wash their hands of it, and all of a sudden we're faced with a change order after change order, and all of a sudden a 2.1 million project becomes a 3.1 million, 4.1 million by virtue of the change orders. So I think it would help the process, and I think encourage and people would have faith in it if at the time they make the bid, they include the items that they deem essential, and the bid should reflect that at the time they make the bid, and not try to rely on the change order as a way to kind of do an end run around their initial bid. So that's.
I don't get the impression that this was.
Contractor didn't make an end run
Contractor didn't make it.
around the bid, around the proposal. He bid exactly what was requested in the proposal. There are a list of items as long as your arm, and he filled them all out just as he should have. There were things that were not included on those original plans.
Okay, so the proposal then that we made should have reflected things that would have been deemed essential.
Necessary.
Okay, so the onus is on the proposal maker, is that right, to come up with what would be deemed essential so that you're going to get a bid that's actually going to reflect what it's going to cost to complete the project?
That is correct.
Okay. And do we know who made the initial proposal for this?
Yes, it wasn't me.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
However, I talked to all the people who are going to use the facility and the utility department. We had to make the extension of the water system work without destroying that portion of the water system. We had to extend it, lower the pressure. As far as the fencing and the backstops, these are standard items that the Recreation Department always uses. So we included them. It's a 3.74% increase on the contract. We don't expect any more change orders. I do believe we have found everything that was not included. And all departments are happy going forward with these changes.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions on any of the resolutions from the dais? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-5?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I second.
All those in, we already had discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, the resolutions have been approved. Council liaison updates. I'll start with Councilwoman Quinn.
So Susan Egan did reach out to me. I owe her a phone, we're kind of playing phone tag. So I need to get back to her, and we need to schedule meetings. So we need to get all of our schedules together. So I will follow up with Deputy Mayor Clark as well as with Susan, because we have to figure out what the time, I don't know what your schedule is. We have to be able to coordinate that.
Sure.
Then we can get back to Susan, and then she's got to coordinate it on her side. So with regard to LMCC, normally we try to meet with them quarterly. That's usually what we've tried to do in the past. Sometimes they've had to be canceled, so I think we should at least get 2 meetings on the schedule for this year. And then let's see if we can, once we're, we get the 2 on the schedule, then maybe we could figure out and drive depending on what's going on. It sounds like we need almost, I don't want to say a special meeting, but I do think that before, we need to get together with Lake Mohawk and maybe a member of this traffic report before 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks, we're looking at having the hearing, and I really don't want to have a hearing on an ordinance that we don't have all the facts for, or that we know is incorrect and we have an opportunity to amend it and get it right the first time. So that's an action item that we're going to have to follow up on within that 2-week period of time to make sure that we can meet beforehand. And also, we should probably include Mr. Ryan in that meeting as well, or at least let you know what's going on, and Sam, so that we're all on the same page. And probably also the chief or his traffic officer, somebody that can answer all these questions that we have, that's way more familiar with it than I am anyway. So with that said, also the senior advisory met this past week. I was in attendance at that meeting. A couple of different things to bring to everyone's attention. There were a lot of really great events that happened, so that's fantastic. But one of the big, and one of the really large topics that came up was around the topic of senior hunger. So it really is a much bigger issue than a lot of people think about. And so there was a very good presentation on it from Melanie Mortar. There are a lot of different places where our seniors can get help if they're faced with a situation where they don't know where their next meal is coming from. And I know that we just updated our website, but I'm going to be working with them to really get a lot of these institutions and organizations on that website. I think we used to have always a page that was for self-help, and it was for anything, whether it be addiction, for our veterans. I know we have an entire Salute 07871 section. We had for self-help, we had everything for the county, the Center for Prevention and Counseling on there for addiction issues, mental health issues. And I think that I'm going to speak to the seniors about getting this information out there in that self-help section and updating that self-help section. Because again, there's so much stigma associated with this that they might not want to pick up the phone and call somebody. So I think it's very important that we have the information out there so that our residents can just get to it, especially our seniors. And just to get it on record before we have that conversation, there are very many organizations that can help. The Hunger Coalition, Meals on Wheels, Farmers Market, the Catholic Food Bank, the Sparta Food Pantry, Project Self-Sufficiency, the SCARC Food Bank, and Benny's Bodega, just to name a few. So I wanted to just get them out there and bring a little bit of awareness to the fact that a lot of people don't know that overall 6.8% of seniors are facing what's called food insecurity, which means they're not sure where their next meal is coming from, whether they can't get to it or whether they don't have the funds to secure it. But it is a very serious issue. In addition to that, Jenny, it would be really great if maybe you could help us to raise awareness to the fact that the pantries and whatnot, we really need to encourage people to be donating as much as they possibly can. I know we do a lot of initiatives around that, but really not just for our seniors, but just it's so critical that we are supporting the food pantries and these different organizations. So maybe if you could help us get the word out. Okay, great. They're working on information flyers and whatnot also, so when they get their flyers and whatnot made, we can support them also on the website. But I said maybe what we could do, and we've done it in the past, when we mail out our tax bills, when we do flyers, we have done flyers in the past. They don't add to the postage, so we've been able to slip a paper into the tax bill. So I'm thinking that maybe it's not a bad idea for us to look back to. We did it years ago where we had newsletter sort of things, one sheet that we put in the tax bill. It didn't cost us anything, and we knew that it went to every single household. And it's things like this that affect really everyone, and I think we maybe should think about that. They also spoke at length about a lot of different organizations, committee reports that are going on. The Senior Olympics is big. I know the Municipal Alliance supports them greatly, so they're working on that right now. There's a big uptake, which is fantastic to hear that the county actually got 11 new buses. So there's a lot more increase in the transport of our seniors and them being able to get out and get around. So I think that's very, very important. Also, we're going to be hearing more information about the Sparta Senior Advisory Committee nomination for the annual award that we give. So I have information, and as we move closer to it, I'll be really happy to share that with everyone, and I'll be giving updates. Also, Senior Appreciation Day, again, will be held in May, and again, information will be coming out to everybody. So with that said, that's pretty much everything with the Sparta Senior Advisory Committee. Another report, another concern that did come up during that meeting again was, and I know we are very painfully aware of this, the need for additional senior housing. That it's really a struggle, and many, many seniors were losing them because they don't have options for where to go if they are no longer able to, for example, do the maintenance on a home or whatnot. The wait list for Knoll Heights, again, was really, I think it was 5 years long. I think it's closed now. I don't want to say that and speak out of turn, but, and also I'm looking into learning more about what the plans for Knoll View are. So I know that the announcement was made that they would be closing for that service. I know they've started an 18-month in advance to place everyone that's there currently and possibly move it to a different model. I want to stay on top of that because I want to make sure that we do not lose one unit for our seniors. So I'll keep you guys posted on that, but just to let you know that it is a real concern. So that's it for the senior committee, the senior advisory committee, and for Lake Mohawk Country Club. And I think the other committees we're going to be talking about later. So,
Excellent. Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, with respect to Lake Mohawk, I agree. I think we need to meet with them prior to the discussion of the ordinance, and I think we can limit the discussion to the ordinance, and then we can have another meeting about, as you say, the quarterly meeting that we normally do. I did attend the Board of Trustees meeting yesterday at Lake Mohawk. My understanding is probably the most well-attended meeting they've ever had. It was standing room only, and that has to do with particular issues related to finances, among other things, at Lake Mohawk. So we'll address that, and on at least my own behalf, I made it clear that if they have issues that they need to bring, that we can assist them with, or they want input in, they should come here and share them with us. So that we look at ourselves as a partner. They're part of our town, and so I look forward to working with them. I also attended the school board meeting last week, and Chairman Mr. Morris did mention that we need to meet, and so we will, I guess, forthwith to meet with the school board. And I also had the benefit of sharing a personal experience that I had with the middle school teachers who were absolutely outstanding. And I think that we are very, very blessed to have the teachers that we do in this district. Having raised 4 kids in a different school district outside of Philadelphia, I've been to more parent-teacher conferences than I can imagine. And they were by far one of the most impressive I've seen, just really cared about the child. And so we are very fortunate to have the teachers that we do. And so that is that's Lake Mohawk. That is the school board. I did have a concern with the school board. There was a motion made to stop live streaming. That was tabled, and speaking personally, I think that's a step in the wrong direction to get rid of live streaming at the school board. But they'll make up their own mind. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you. I got a couple things to talk about. One is with the Cultural Affairs Committee. The committee still is concerned about the the 2 Saturday concert dates. I don't believe a resolution has been yet accepted by everybody. I did refer them to Jean to see if they can work something out, and I'll need to ping them again on that. The Culture Affairs Committee meets the first Wednesday of the month. And we should make sure that those are on the calendar as well. So that's still ongoing. I did have my first meeting at the library board. We have a fantastic library, if you didn't know. I hope you guys, everybody here avails themselves of it. And for the Board of Education, I am meeting later this week with a couple of representatives from the student government at the high school to discuss the possibility of some kind of a program where the council can partner with the high school. And lots of things are on the table, but I hope to see more student engagement with our government.
So we do have a program already called Council in the Classroom. It's been in existence for a few years now.
Okay.
So I don't know, who are you meeting with at the school?
Angela DeLucia and Caitlin Josefchik.
So there is a program
Okay.
already in existence.
One thing we were talking about is actually having the student government run one of the meetings, or possibly, or some kind of involvement. Again, ideas are on the table. We'll be bold and we'll figure something fun out. That's all I have for committee reports.
One thing, Mr. Mayor, I did forget was I'm also liaison to the county. I will be attending a meeting this Thursday. There is a Sparta high school student who is doing his end-of-the-year project, has to do with converting about 50 miles of abandoned rail lines into trails, and he's making a presentation before the commissioners about, and also using the county's open space funds to explore that. So I think it's a fantastic idea, and I want to learn more, so I'm going to be there this Thursday.
Excellent, thank you. On to old business. We have a couple of items on the agenda, but before I get to those agenda items from the dais, is there anybody, old business, starting with the Deputy Mayor Clark?
No old business.
Thank you. Councilwoman Quinn?
No.
Thank you. For myself, I have none, so let's get to the agenda items. The first one here are, there are two vacancies for alternates on the zoning board. I did see that a number of applications have been submitted over the past, I want to say 2 weeks. I would like to make sure the council has the opportunity to consider all the applicants, and I'll be collecting any recommendations or gathering recommendations for nominations, or we can feel free to do them. But I'd like to do that at a time when all the council members are present. So we'll sort of pass on that. But if you're interested in applying for one of those positions, there's a form on the website that I hope is easier to find this time, because we have a brand new website. So the next item on our list is, go ahead.
Are you sure there's 2 openings?
Yes, I
I
am.
don't think the second person resigned formally. So I think before we advertise that, we better make sure that the second person formally resigned. I think one was asking about it, but didn't formally resign. So
I
I'm
was
just
told they were
saying
both
before
formally
we-
resigned.
I'm just saying, before we move forward, let's just be sure that we have formal resignations. The other thing that I have to say about that, again, is that we have residents that had put in applications in 2021, because we keep them in the end of 2020. And I know that you're referring to new people, which is great, but we keep these names on file. So I am asking that this council not just look at the new ones, but also take the time. I have the list right here, and it's pretty significant. So I'm asking, the people that apply for these things, they depend on us to keep their names on file. Not everyone's a great fit for everything, I get that. But before we keep looking at all the new applications, I'm just saying, please be mindful also but there's a reason why we keep the old one, the applications for 2 years. So let's be mindful of involvement from everyone there.
Okay, excellent. So moving on to the next item, we did in the last session or in the last year introduce an ordinance that did not move forward to appropriate money for a new salt shed. At the time, the council wished to have a wider discussion on that, and I am happy that we have someone here that can give us a broader discussion on that. So, Mr. Zepp, could you please join us here?
Good evening.
Hello. Thanks for hanging out with us. So what can you tell us about why Sparta needs a new salt shed? And you and I, before this, we had a very long discussion. Thank you for spending a lot of time with me. I appreciate that. But I think for the township and for the public, it would be helpful to have this conversation here.
Understandable. I appreciate that. And I go back that the council for many years has supported the Public Works Department, and I and my crew greatly appreciate that. We have quite an asset in a complex. And as I had said earlier, Deputy Mayor Clark, you're the only individual I haven't formally met and got to know, but I invite you up to the Public Works complex, and I would love to show you what we have going on up there. It's yours assets up there. We've slowly been developing that complex. Most recently, we built a beautiful state-of-the-art fuel island for all the fleet. We used to have underground storage tanks right here in Town Hall in the parking lot.
Right next to the river?
Right next to the river. And
What could possibly go wrong?
And they were old, and yes, it was a large liability, as you all are familiar with. So I was very pleased that we were able to remove those tanks without issue, no leakage or anything like that. And we were able to put above-ground double-walled tanks with all the safety features. And because we have the space up there, being on the landfill and all, I was able to go with 10,000-gallon tanks, larger tanks. We had 6,000 here. And you do that for all the reasons of expansion. It insulates us. I get bulk pricing on tank delivery. There's a lot of reasons that I was very pleased that the council supported that investment. And it's worked out very well. I'm very pleased with it. And now we have also that comfort of having extra storage of fuel, because the commodity market, whether it's fuel or salt, can be erratic at times, as we know. So that has been working out very well for us, and I'm happy with that. So that segues me right into the salt barn. The current salt dome that we have was built in 1998. Its capacity is 1,500 ton. All right. Now it's a salt dome. Like all the domes you see on Route 15 or any town, if you really want to maximize the capacity of a salt dome, you get a conveyor system to load the salt and dump it in. A conveyor system is very expensive, stainless steel, and honestly, you're only using it for the couple of times of the loads. So needless to say, when I arrived here back in 2001, there was no conveyor system. It was never purchased. It was never used. So all the salt has to get pushed up with loaders that literally bathe in the product to push it into the dome. And that's how we worked. So then shortly after that, we purchased a coverall building, which is a fabric-all structure, right next to this to expand our capacity. And we were using a mixed gradient at the time. It was a grit mixed in with salt, and it was a 1-to-3 ratio. And that worked out fairly well, except if you've been up to the complex, there is no windbreak. There aren't any trees. It's brutal up there if you've ever been up there. And in the wintertime, it's just some tough weather up there. That coverall's taken a beating, and we've patched it, we've re-welded it, done all sorts of stuff. And basically last year, I had to take it down for fear of it blowing away. PennDOT used to use them. There's articles where they banned them. They don't use them anymore. There's issues with them. I still actually have a smaller one that I use for storage and stuff like that. So I've been asking for a while for a salt barn. A few years ago, we looked into leasing space from the county in their salt dome over on Randazzo Drive, the Lafayette location. They have a dome there, and we worked out an agreement where they would store 2,000 tons for us. They're not happy having to not touch salt, and I hear it all the time from the Public Works guy there. They're very nice about it, but they're not happy that they have to constantly leave that salt there. And I'll be honest with you, since we did the agreement, I've never had to go and get it. We've been fortunate, but it's been there. What else can I say about this is, right now, our average salt use is about 4,500 ton, all right? Worst year, 2015, if you remember that was a really bad year. I was up around 7,000, 7,500 ton, all right? So the barn that I'm proposing has a 10,000 ton capacity, all right? It will have, and it's not a dome, it's a barn, all right? The bid that Ed and I have worked out is 12-foot concrete walls with then a wood structure over it, and it would have the capability of a lean-to on the side where I could store a lot of my equipment, because believe it or not, I've got a beautiful complex up there, but I can't get all my equipment in there. The V&B boards, you guys love those traffic boards. They do. We use them all the time. They work very well. I don't have a place to put them. So right now, they're next to the garage. But that would be something that would go under the lean-to. Some of our summer seasonal equipment would go under the lean-to too. So there is a build it smart. You may say, why has it got to be so big? Well, 10,000 ton is right in that realm. At the same time, Sparta isn't done growing. I just took over additional roads over in North Village Boulevard, Aaron Way, Whitlands Way, up off Stanhope Road, and there's some other private roads that are still just on the verge of turning. So we're still expanding. I've gotten away from using the grit. I've been to enough storm seminars that have discussed using the straight salt. All our trucks have computer spreader systems in them. All right, so on those computer spreader systems, when they're calibrated, we're putting down anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds per lane mile. That is what is the recommended amount. Now, my drivers do have the flexibility that if we're hitting, steep inclines, we can put down a little more. All my drivers are educated on the proper use of the systems. We do a winter meeting every year, because I do get new personnel involved, and we discuss it. You have 20 plow routes in town. Just yesterday and the day before, we had our first snow event of the season, of January of the year, and we do well. I'm proud of my operation, what we got going on there. This salt barn would be a big asset for us moving forward. Ultimately, I've had discussions with Sam, our finance officer, and he was telling me a project like this would be a good debt to take on. It goes right along, because we have some other large projects that are just getting paid off. But you need to know that, believe me, this is $2 million, that's a lot of money. I know that, anyone else knows that. But it's not lost on me or my operation or the services that we provide to the residents.
What's the driver of that cost? I mean, is it?
Salt is a commodity.
But I'm talking about the actual cost of the construction. I'm thinking, because there's no foundation, there's no fixtures other than lights. I mean,
it's prevailing wage. Unfortunately, it costs a lot to bring a contractor in and build a project. As you guys know, I try to do as much as I can in-house. I've got very skilled and capable guys on staff, but I can't build a salt barn. I'll wire it. I'll do the small stuff where I can. I'll pave it. I got asphalt. And Ed and I have worked it out on the bid specs that I cut every little item I can that I know I can do in-house, and that where I need the professionals to come in, that's what they'll do.
Would a prefabricated steel building be any less expensive? Like, my brother used to work for a company that sold prefabricated steel buildings, and I was just curious.
I'd be curious who has a prefabricated steel salt facility. One is it would eat it up. I've been able to visit a lot of towns because this is no, small amount of money investment. Kinnelon's got a nice salt barn. You see them all on the Turnpike, actually. They got some big salt facilities there. And then it's funny, I was at a Public Works meeting today, and I was talking to Byram. They've got a salt dome, a very large salt dome. He has problems right now because the walls are starting to sag out because he doesn't have a conveyor system. And his machines have to go in there, and they push and it puts a lot of pressure on the walls, and over time, you're going to get that. The other thing is, you can't get a roofer who wants to climb a salt dome and re-roof it. It's very hard to do. Very hard to find that. We take care of our own. I end up using a lift and a skilled guy who's literally strapped to the lift, and he'll patch our roof that way. So the barn is the smartest way to go. I understand the prefabs. I've looked at all the angles. One is I don't think we're reinventing we're inventing the wheel here, right? We've got these facilities all around us. So I go out, I network, I try to find the best facility, the best barns, and I think Ed and I put together a pretty good bid spec. I'm not expecting any addendums to ours if this goes, for what it's worth. So we work pretty hard on that.
The current capacity is what?
Is 1,500 ton.
1,500 tons. And then the Lafayette is a supplement to that?
Well, they're kind of like an insurance. If I can't get salt, I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, we had problems down at the port. Down at the port, there's two situations usually exist. Either the supply is not there, you're not getting salt at the port, or it's there, but the trucking outfits don't want to bring it up here. And all of a sudden you're short and everyone's running around looking for salt. And then, what was it, the Super Bowl got it? Is that what was the rumor, right?
And they store 2,000 tons, is that right? They allocate 2,000 to us?
They reserve 2,000 tons for us.
And when is the last time that we've had to use that allocation?
I haven't.
Okay.
Because
so I think the question I would have would be, so we have 1,500 tons, we have 2,000 in Lafayette that we haven't had to use. Why is it do we think we need a tripling of our allocation, right? Because we're not even, the 1,500 we've been adequate with, we haven't had to go into the 2,000. And so my question would be, then why do we need one that stores 4,500 when 1,500 seems to be adequate? We haven't even touched the 2,000 we have segregated in Lafayette.
All right. Our average use is 4,500 a year. All right. So I'm at 4,500 a year average. All right. These last little 3 events I had 9 guys come in Sunday night, and then yesterday's event, all that. That was 4 rounds in the town, and that came out to about 400 ton right there. All right. Try and predict the weather. Right. What I like to try and do is insulate ourselves. All right. So the dome holds 1,500, and the dome's 25 years old. I can't tell you how much longer I'm going to get life out of that. All right. So let's base it on 4,500 ton average use with an average season right now. All right. Worst case scenario, the worst season I had, I was up around 7,000. All right. Another worst case scenario is all of a sudden we have a problem with the supply. I can't get salt. What do I do then? If I get a large storage facility, that's an investment that's going to last a long time, also help me with my storage. All right. It'll help us with pricing of salt. Because I'll tell you right now, if we keep having this winter that we're having right now, salt's going to be cheap next year. Right now, I'm paying $79 a ton off the Sussex County Co-op. All right. Last year, we were paying $59 a ton. All right. And that was because the previous year, we had a really light year. And when they're not unloading salt, the price goes down. So wouldn't it be great if we could take advantage of a low-priced salt, stockpile it, and then have it? And then, because we are the lead town of Sussex County, you could also help out your fellow towns if you had to also. Because I'll tell you right now, we've got a great relationship with the surrounding towns with us. Lafayette and us do a lot of shared stuff. Byram, I do a lot shared with them. I mean, I'm always talking with Andover and all. So Again, I'll stress it's an investment, and I think it's a prudent investment. Sam, the finance officer, is telling me that this timing is appropriate. I just think it's the right thing to do, and I put that proposal in front of you. But I would beg you to come up and check out the facility. See what we got going up there. Look at the investments that we have already with the fuel island, with the facility itself. I believe it serves the residents pretty well, and we're able to, I came from Randolph, right, and a lot of our fleet at the time was all stored outside. Go down Route 15, look at State Garage. You see those trucks out there? They're all outside. I just, talk about not taking care of your investment. This town does it right. It does take care of its investments. It has a garage. We have it in there. We have good personnel. We train them and all. And so I've got a state-of-the-art fuel island now. And to me, the only thing we got to get is the salt barn. And that's going to take care of you for a long time, a real long time.
I mean, I know one issue with salt, and some towns are moving away because of the environmental effects that salt has. I mean, I gather that, calcium, acetate and magnesium acetate are more expensive than salt. But, I mean, we do have to recognize that, salt, you would agree with me, does have an environmental effect, right? I mean, and we live where we live. We live in an area within a watershed. I know our neighboring state, New York, they recently found, I think, 24% of their private wells had salt in them from salt that had been dispensed on the roadway. And so I think if we're going to look forward, I think that we could be moving to an area where salt is not the preeminent source to de-ice the roads. And how would we, if we're stuck with this gigantic salt shed, I guess what we would store, an alternative to that could be stored there as well. Is that right?
I'm with you, but I'm very pessimistic about the future. Salt has always been the primary means. All right, they haven't found an alternative to salt. They've looked, they've tried the chemical, they've done the whole chemical thing, and they're still pushing the chemical. I use chemical only on our salt. I use a magnesium treatment of salt, and that's when the temperatures are so cold, and I still want the material to work. All right, I'll use magnesium, but I try to approach the storm smartly. And like I told you, all the trucks are computer controlled, so I try to put down only as much as I really need to. But being always aware, Sparta, you've got a whole nother system up on Sparta Mountain. You got another system down here, and then we're in other corners. That's another reason. The Public Works facility is up in the left corner of Sparta. I got to reach the other 3 quarters. We don't have any other satellite salt domes to tap into. It's just the one. And actually, it's a good thing because you're on a landfill with your salt dome. Don't want to contaminate the landfill. I get it. But what you're saying makes sense, and I'm with you. If I could get away from the using more salt, I would. The problem is you're going to answer to the residents. They're going to call you up, and they're going to explain how high their taxes are and how there's snowpack in front of their house, and they want to get out. So we want to give them the best customer service as possible, and I'm with you, and I know you see this, that it's tough. And you know what? If we got away from salt, that barn would then turn into a storage garage, which you still need. So
there would be alternative uses for it if we, if we can create a world where we have an alternative to salt without this, that doesn't have the same environmental degradation properties that salt does, but we're not there yet. And I know that you stay on top of this, and if you knew there was a reasonable, interchangeable alternative to salt, you would probably pursue it.
absolutely.
So I just want to say also, during my tenure on the board, I have been nothing but impressed with the way it's run under your leadership, and also the fact that we basically changed the model of the DPW. And we did that several years ago. Everything, there were many, many things that were outsourced, if you remember. And we said, well, wait a minute, what if we didn't outsource all that? What if we got the tools? What if we made the investment in the technologies and the trucks and the mowers and all the different, I don't know what they are. I know pictures, I've seen them all. But what if we brought the equipment in and really empowered the workforce who knows these things? What if we really put our money there? And what has happened since we switched that model is unbelievable. Many people may or may not realize that. I mean, your department and in certain instances when partnered with Parks and Recs have just done amazing things and saved us a tremendous amount of money. So that's huge success, builds big trust, adds big value to this community, not just on our roads when it's snowing, but, I mean, we could go on and on. In parallel to that, every single time we have made those investments, every time, we've worked with you on something that you need, I have never seen a frivolous request, ever. Nor have I ever seen a request come in that wasn't looked at very, very seriously and scrutinized and double-checked and whatever to make sure that we were getting the best price for the best product. I know when I attended the picnic that was up at the DPW, you showed me around, and I had the opportunity to see the existing salt shed. And I know it needs to be replaced. And I also was on this council the year that we could not find salt anywhere. So I know what we went through with that. I never want to do that again. We've had some I don't even want to say it out loud. We should just strip what I'm about to say from the record because we'll have a snowstorm tomorrow, I'm sure. But we have had mild winters. I've been up here for 30 years now, and 3 feet of snow, winters where you get perpetual storms, a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, 5 inches, this, that, and the other thing. We've had very mild winters, in my opinion. And so I think what you're saying is absolutely accurate. We need to plan. It's great to have light winters, but we need to plan that we know the landscape is capable of. And so I support this request and your department and what you're doing 100%. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate everything that you and the department has done.
Thank you. Likewise. And I also want to note that under Sam's approach, he created that snow trust fund, which has been huge. So when we have the light winters, we carry over the money that we save, that was budgeted for, into the trust fund to catch any of the high end when things are expensive. And that has saved us multiple times. And it's worked out. So I think we're doing it the best we can, as efficiently as we can, and it works. But I look forward to having you come up and Councilman Blumetti too. That'd be great.
Excellent.
Great, thank you. Very helpful.
Right. Thanks for taking the time to explain that to us. I think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, no problem. One other thing is you're asking about protective measures. Sam and I are working every day and all this, and we spend money and stuff. Protective Measures is a company who is vetted through the co-op, and I use them for all our alarm work on all the buildings for security alarms, and they're also the fire suppression system company. So both systems have to get inspected annually, under ordinance, and lots of times some repairs are usually required and stuff like that. So I just want to give you a heads up. That's what Protective Measures is.
Right,
So,
thank you.
no problem.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, the next item is on our agenda is under old business is a discussion of the Economic Development Committee. I think this is also an interesting and important discussion to have in public as we consider changes to our policies and our procedures and our administrative structure. So that said, I would like to open up to the public. If there's anybody that wants to offer suggestions or an input into what you feel might be appropriate for the scope of an economic development committee in Sparta. I know we've already heard from Mr. Giroux. Did I say that right? I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Seeing none, I open it up to the dais. I'll start with, does anybody have any ideas or anything to share about the Economic Development Committee? Councilwoman Quinn?
So I definitely do. I looked through the documentation that was provided with regard to what the ordinances are for the EDCs in Lafayette, Newton. Also, we had Hardiston in here and Byram. And what I want to do is redirect this conversation first and foremost until Councilman Hertzberg is here, since he's been the liaison to it, and also Janice Stevens, God rest her soul, was the secretary to the EDC for decades, and my understanding is that before Janice left us, she had worked up in conjunction with the Economic Development Committee, so this would have been a couple of years ago, new objectives and goals. I think we can all take a look at I appreciate the fact that we have the EDC outlines or resolutions from these different municipalities, but I don't think that, comparatively speaking, you could take a town that is similar to like Newton, for example, and look at what their EDC is doing and compare it to here, where you have so much of a different landscape and atmosphere. So what I would like to do is, I would like to take the time to really spend here, but before we go outward, I would like to see where Janice was going with her thoughts, since she was such an integral part of this committee for a very, very long time. So I know that in order to get those documents, we need the help of IT. Obviously, IT was not available because they're working on the new website. So I would like to table this discussion until two things happen. First and foremost, we get the information that was originally compiled by Janice Stevens. And secondly, that we have Councilman Hertzberg here, who was liaison for several years, so that we can just get all the facts together before we decide we're going to change something that I don't think, we have all the facts for. So my move at this point, or I would move at this point, that we table the economic development discussion for a future date when we can get the information and the personnel in the room that we need to have to make an educated decision.
Thank you. I personally think that's fair. I'm going to go over to Deputy Mayor Clark's comments in a minute, but I think that's fair, and I believe that as Councilman Hertzberg has been part of this committee for a while, that his input should be heard as well. So I think that's a good idea, but I'll also solicit information or a comment from you, Deputy Mayor.
No, I do agree. If we can get a hold of those objectives and goals that the Secretary had, I think that would be helpful. I did see some things in these other ordinances that I liked, but they may be already within what Sparta already has. And I'll just, for me, I have noticed, the vacant properties in Sparta. Some of them seem to be prime locations, and it sort of struck me, why is that? These look like great locations. Why are they sitting empty for 2 years, 3 years? What can we get to the bottom of that? What is it about the property or what the owner of the property is offering? Why can't they seem to fill it? Because, we all believe that Sparta is a gem, and these are great locations. We're talking White Deer Plaza. We're talking the theater center. There's other places that have been vacant for quite some time, and I know one of the issues that are addressed in a lot of these are, trying to encourage people to take up the vacant property. So that's one issue that, in my mind, and then going forward. But I do agree. Let's table this until Councilman Hertzberg is here, as he has been integral to that committee, and so that I'm fine with that.
So I have a motion on the floor to table. So can I have a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Actually, before, I'd like to make a comment as well. So in addition to, as I just said, waiting for Janice's input and for, I'm sorry, Josh's input and for Janice's comments that, or suggestions that she had come up with while she was here. I agree with what you just said, Deputy Mayor Clark. I own commercial property for many years, and I feel the sting of an unrented commercial unit. It's tough. So I think those are things that we should focus on. But zooming out, and let me actually also say that what's the organization? The Chamber of the Sussex County Chamber of Commerce did share with us, the people on the council, the model ordinances for the economic development committees of the aforementioned towns in Sussex County. And the chamber is an advocacy group for business in the county, and that's fine. We have our own Sparta chapter of that as well. I believe that this organization or this committee of our township should focus on policy, administrative work, and not necessarily advocacy, because we have small business advocates and business advocate groups for that purpose in the county. Anyway, those are my comments.
I will just say to that point, if I may, that I will go back to the many things that, I mean, if we look at, I'm just going to go back the past 2.5 years with the global pandemic. It was this EDC and the relationship and the establishment of this EDC that allowed us to get the input that we needed directly from the businesses when it started coming to us saying, our model is broken, our restaurants are going under, we need help. Can you please help us with tents? Can we do outdoor dining? We need to change the ordinances. They don't support it. We looked at the food truck ordinance because a lot of the restaurants could no longer be restaurants, right? They were shut down. No one could go to them. So it was these relationships. And through this EDC, that's where all these things were coming from. And I think one of the key elements is just to have that sounding board directly where we can act quickly on things that we're getting, in addition to being able to plan or look at the landscape or do different things of that nature. I think that it's also really critical that we are maintaining our EDC. It's not a competitor to the county or competitor to the town chamber of commerce in any way, shape, or form, that we were really able to work well through the EDC when disseminating and including them in the grants programs that we had. We have access to Millennium, who is our grant provider. So that direct interface, at least I'm only speaking through the pandemic. I mean, I could go on and on. Councilman Hertzberg will elaborate, I'm sure, but this is where I'm sitting as not a member of the EDC, seeing all the great things that did. I think that now we're facing some different challenges, new challenges, when it comes to vacant land and things of that nature. Many times it has to do with the fact that it looks like it's vacant, but it's not really vacant. Someone owns it and they're holding on to it. It might be an issue with the Highlands. It might be that it's not perked. There could be a lot of reasons. When you drive down the road, just because you see open property doesn't mean it's necessarily vacant. Businesses in different areas, there are things there we cannot control, like rent and what's charged and whatnot. Hookup fees we've identified in the past to be detrimental, even though we have no control over them. So this is the input that we get directly from the EDC, and that's the importance of having the Sparta EDC. So I really look forward to having this conversation when we have the right pieces of information, but I think that its value, you can absolutely see it in everything that we've been able to do. So with that said, it looks like we're going to table this conversation. So the action items are, we have to get the notes from Janice. So Sam, could you
And Josh
please-
might already have them.
What's that?
Josh might have a copy of them if he was involved.
Right, so I'll reach out, I guess, to Josh, if you could, or you can reach out to Josh, and also please reach out to, if Josh can't find them, maybe land use, maybe, or maybe IT, to see if we can get the last version. So.
I don't know if, you made a motion to table it, and it was seconded, so I think we should vote. So all those in favor of tabling it?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any abstain or any no? Okay, so this will appear on a future agenda, the Economic Development Committee. The last agenda item under no old business is a discussion of our hunting ordinances, which was introduced in Resolution 9-21 from the December 13, 2022 meeting. And what I'd like to do is to get some input from the community as well as from the dais on how we can best approach this, because I think what was done was rather thin at the last meeting, and so I wanted a discussion item on this agenda. So I'll open it up to the public if there's anyone who has any comments about introducing hunting on Sparta Township property.
And I think the other thing we need to be mindful of, just on the way you phrase that, is we're reopening. So this was done in the past, just so everyone's clear, this isn't something new.
And it was rescinded in the past, too.
Right, so it's not a matter of starting it or opening it, it's reopening it. So it's past precedent there.
Okay.
Just so everyone is clear.
Jenny Derricks, 27 Mount Pleasant Road, family of hunters, and I've solicited their input, as well as, I think I related to you, I spoke with the chief not too long ago about this. The resolution, everybody that I've spoken with, including the chief, believes that the resolution should, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but this is what he said to me, could have some more information around it. My words, some more guardrails, some more guidance, so that people looking to come to hunt in Sparta have an understanding. It is true the state establishes the overall hunting regulations for all hunters in the state. You have to get permits, but we're requiring people to come to Sparta and get permits. There can be a look at the limitations of those permits. You can limit the number of permits. You can also offer first opportunity to Sparta residents. Put a limit on maybe the first 10, maybe the first 20. If you're offering a pool of, say, 40, I'm not obviously just throwing numbers out there, that those first batch could go to Sparta residents. You would look at and the chief was interested in helping you with this as well, and what he related to me, looking at the available properties in Sparta, the public lands. There are significant numbers of public lands, but at the last meeting, Sam did indicate that only a certain number of those lands would be qualified for hunting, with the various limitations on distances depending on the weapon. The other thing to consider, so you look at which properties are consistent with those rules, and then as a council and the community decide which ones of those properties are ones that we're interested in having hunting take place. We probably wouldn't want hunting in Station Park, even though that might meet the criteria. We would have to look at other options, maybe the Glen and the Riker Lake and so on, but that would be something that you would want to have a discussion on as well. Other towns, as I think I mentioned to you, other towns decide to close the parks altogether in the areas that they intend to allow hunting for a week for the deer cull per the different seasons. And other options would be to limit the weapon, possibly not allow for any gun and just go with bow, since even a good crossbow can go 100 yards easily. So you want to, those are some of the things, I'm just putting this out there for you to consider, some of the things that you might want to talk about amongst yourselves and with the residents as ways to put some guardrails on hunting in the township if you decide you want to have it.
So Jenny, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
I'm not a hunter, so, but I believe, and if anyone here knows, but I believe that you can only use certain weapons during certain times of the year.
That's correct.
So you can't just use a shotgun all the time, or whatever kind of gun, rifle.
Rifle's not
or
allowed
bow.
in New Jersey.
I mean, I just threw that out there. That
Right.
was a bad choice. But I'm just saying, I think that there are rulings higher than us on these weapons.
Of course, that's
And-
what I said. I preface
Right.
the comments with the state sets the overall
Right.
rules, guidelines, and then the township has the opportunity to tighten them up a little bit as the township deems appropriate for the properties available within the
Right.
township limits.
And I also just wanted to clarify, I know we were using examples of Station Park and White Lake, and I do not want it going out in the public because someone heard it here saying, oh my God, we're going to have
No, and I said that.
hunting at Station Park. So I just
We
want to
might-
be clear that
that's
we're
what I
not
said.
talking about that.
We might decide it's
White
probably
Lake.
not appropriate to have hunting in those places.
Thank you, Jenny.
We're closing Field 1B, so we can, yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't want someone to mishear it, and I want to be clear that we're not opening up hunting in, we're going to hunt in Jim's salt shed. No, we're not.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
The vast salt shed. Thank you for offering that. Any other questions from the public?
I
Okay.
like the idea that Jenny brought up of maybe the first 10 or 15 people are from Sparta. Like, I don't know if legally we can do that. I guess we have to defer to you, Mr. Ryan, on that. I'm not sure if we are allowed to do that, but I like that. The other thing is, hunting and fishing has been such a huge part of Sussex County forever. And I think that we need to be mindful of that fact as well. And I also would like to see what the old legislation is around the properties that we allowed hunting on, to be able to comparatively look at it. I think we understand that the state's responsible for certain things, we can be responsible for certain things, but I'd like to see what we did in the past. We have some ideas here. I think there's always an opportunity to make things better. I think right now the way we left it is that so right now it's open, right? Right now there is an active ordinance that says you can hunt on these properties.
You have an ordinance that was adopted last year.
Yes.
However, I don't believe it's been implemented.
There was no limitations on it, unfortunately. It was just an open ordinance that you could hunt on township property, but it didn't.
With a
have
permit.
Any specifications as to where and how and where it was
And you do
regulated.
have
with a
to,
permit.
as the mayor just said, you have to obtain a local permit. No
Right.
permits have been issued, or I would assume there's no intention
Right.
to issue them at this time.
So I think what I would just like, I think what's just important is, since we did this before, let's take a look at the properties in question. I'm assuming you need X amount of acres, I'm sure. And obviously you need to adhere to all the other things, which, all the other regulations. I think we also need to be mindful of the fact that we're only talking about a certain number of township properties as prescribed by the state. And also be mindful of the fact that there are a lot of people right now that own a lot of chunk of property that have people that come to their property and hunt right now. I think that's something we need to be mindful as well. I do believe in leaving this ordinance open, but again, I always believe we can do things, we can add things to it moving forward. So I think we should have that discussion, put together some things and work together and see if we can't add a couple things, leave the ordinance in place that we have now. We can always update it with these different things. But I think we need more information before we can really have an educated conversation around it.
Okay. Anything else? Or?
Nope.
Do you have any comments?
Just it would be helpful to me just to know what are the properties we're talking about, and as Ms. Derrick's alluded to, whether given that property that we're talking about, whether restrictions above and beyond what the state requires would be necessary. One thing I realize is that, and Mr. Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, if you own the land, you own the liability. And so while there may be private property owners who there's hunting, my understanding that they would be responsible for any liability that occurs during hunting on their land because they own it. So now we're taking our land, township land, putting what I think we'd all agree is kind of what the law would say an inherently dangerous activity, putting aside that it's a completely acceptable one. We need to make sure that if we're going to allow this activity, that we're going to limit our risk exposure. That would be my concern. And so I think that Councilwoman Quinn is right. Let's tell me what the properties are. My understanding, there is hunting going on in Sparta right now, probably on people's property where it's allowable.
On private properties.
Yeah, private property. And so then, good for them. I'm glad, but I guess the issue would be if you don't have a right of access to that private property, then, a public land would be possible. But I just want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from kind of risk exposure is sort of the way I'm looking at it.
So we should get a statement from Wayne Eats, who's our risk manager, and figure out how we did this before. Because again, we did this before, so we need to figure out did we need more insurance? Is there a cost? I don't know that there was, but I think that's another piece of the puzzle that we need to understand.
Any other comments? Okay.
No. I
I've
think
got,
Kathy may have something.
sure.
Kathy Ebbinghausen, Scudder's Road. I would like to ask that if it's possible, can we post both online on the new website, those properties, and also physically on those properties? I know we have no hunting signs or, private property. Can we post that these are town
Well, and right now,
hunting
we don't even know
zones?
which properties they are.
Right.
It's
I
kind of the
understand
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, so not only am I asking to know both for you guys up at the dais, but also for the public, both physically at the sites and also on the website.
Excellent, thank you.
By law, you have to post anyway, so obviously we would have to do that, but that's what we talked about, and that's what we've been talking about, to your point, is posting exactly where those properties are.
Awesome.
Thank you. So as far as I'm concerned, for my comments, I have real reservations and concerns about putting through ordinances and other policy changes that are not well thought through, and this was not well thought through. Again, as we stated before, we have right now we do not know which properties are even in play here. They're not posted. And if a hunter were to go on that land, those hunters are obviously right now not familiar with that property because there's no hunting allowed on that property. So the hunter might not know the boundaries, might not know where in is. And so, again, this was not well thought through and hastily put together. And I think we should seriously consider pumping the brakes on this and then studying it more before we release it into the wild and not take a shoot first and ask questions later approach to this. The other big concern I have is of the neighboring properties. So for when there is a use, a change of the land use for any property in Sparta, that person is required to come before the board if there's a use that's not permitted or wasn't too far permitted, and notify every property owner within 200 feet of their property of the change that's being requested. I believe this is a significant change to the use of the land that the township owns, and anybody within a 200-foot radius of that property should be notified that, guess what, you might see hunters on that property, and if you have children that play in the empty lot next door, maybe you need to be informed that there are now a significant change. As the deputy mayor said, we're using a dangerous device on the property next door. You're hearing gunshots, rifle shots from the property next door. You probably have concerns because heretofore there was never hunting allowed. So again, this needs to be put through rather methodically. And so I agree with a lot of the things that have been talked about already. I think one of the next steps is to look at the state laws and apply them